Hi, all. My name is Lori Shorr. I'm professor of urban education policy at Temple University. Prior to that, I was a policymaker. I was chief education officer for the city of Philadelphia, and I worked at the state level making policy in the Rendell administration here in Pennsylvania. So I put together what we called, when I was doing policy, a one-pager, which is sort of the coin of the realm in the policy world, as opposed to the dissertation. Get it on one page with bullets if you want anybody to take a look at it. So I put one together for you all on some takeaways that that you might want to use if you're thinking about making impact in policy. So let me share my screen, and I'll go through the one pager with you. So here we go. On the front of the one pager, the first thing I say is, what is your policy goal? And what issue are you interested in impacting? What problem are you trying to solve? Being as clear as you can about what that actually is, as opposed to, oh, I'm interested in trauma-informed care. Maybe you want to be more specific about types of intervention, just so that you can easily state what it is that you're interested in when you meet people and you network. So this is a two-sided thing. This side is when you want to join efforts in something that's already sort of an already stated policy debate, meaning that there are already sort of people set up, the terms of the debate have been set up, all of that's already been settled. So, you know, if you wanted to get involved, I mean, currently it's something like teaching critical race theory. That's already a lot of people involved in that debate. If you wanted to get involved in that, you would stay on this side. But if it's a new thing, like people aren't talking about an issue that you think is really important, you would flip to the other side. So this is the side on, so you're joining an already ongoing public policy debate. And that means that sort of the terms of the debate have been set. So you have to deal with those and understand them. And also a lot of the strategies might already be put in place. So you don't necessarily have to think of those. I would suggest anybody who hasn't been involved in policymaking, start here, because you don't have to build an infrastructure. You don't have to put a strategy together. You can just be a value add to people who are already doing that work. So sort of the first thing you want to do is figure out, do you want to impact this at a national level? So is the fulcrum for your issue a national or a local issue or a state issue? Figure that out. And then figure out who's already working in that space. If it's an ongoing issue, like better funded schools, or all mine will be from education, but like better funded schools, or you know, whether or not the police should be defunded, or if it's something very concrete, like what should the course load for school counselors be? It's too high. We need to ratchet that back. There's probably already some nonprofits who are working on this, or look at, if it's at the state or local, who are the politicians who have put bills forward in relationship to your issue. Find out who's already working in this space and offer your services to them. So that's, I think, the best way for people who are first starting to get involved in policy to do that. So, and then get to know as much as you can about the people that you're working with. You know, what are their current efforts and where are some of the gaps that you can fill in this number two. You know, college and university professors used to be really important in doing work. I mean, we've currently been taking a bit of a hit in terms of our neutral objective stance. But that used to be a thing that was an important part of being a value add, is as a professor and as having a university name beside your name. That's really valuable for activists or for people who are trying to impact policy. I think it still can be. I mean, we've got to push against that narrative. So, I mean, you can, and I say under too, you can be an unbiased researcher. You can play a mediator function. You can help with grant writing. Such an important thing that needs to be done. Nobody likes to do it, yet we have a skill set that is something that is really make or break for a lot of nonprofits who really know how to do the work on the ground, but maybe don't have the experience of understanding how to write in different technical voices that you could do. Editorial writing is something a lot of people who are pushing for policy change, even people inside, if they're legislators, need, and help with communication. Compelling narratives, important metaphors that really communicate are all things that people who are trying to advocate for change need. And obviously your own research, bringing, which I think that's what I started with, an unbiased research, or bring your research to the forefront. And this is something I see on both sides here. Who's opposing the efforts that you're trying to, so you're trying to make a change. There's probably somebody who doesn't want that change to be made, or else it would have been made already. Really important thing in policy is understanding who's opposing you and what they're losing, and really understanding it, and not just demonizing it or characterizing it, but really understanding what they're trying to do, and take it into account when you're coming up with your solutions, and understanding how your research will be perceived in relationship to the opposition is an important thing to spend time thinking about. Who does this policy affect most, and how are their viewpoints and stories being continuously considered? This is something that we're actually not great at the university level, and nonprofits are okay at, but is it really important to people who are making policy? Is if they're good policymakers, they should be concerned about the people who the policy is actually impacting the most, and having their story, their data, their narratives included in your research and your framing of your research is important. So if you're talking about school counselors, making sure you show your research to school counselors and getting their input back on what it means to them, and having done that already before you share it with legislators or policymakers, I would highly suggest. How much time do I want to put in? Don't overpromise. College and universities have a reputation for overpromising and then fading out. So just be really clear and live up to your stated goals at the beginning with anybody you're working with. And how can I create common ground, foster consensus building for long-term sticky change? You know, if you change something quickly, you probably haven't built a base of support. So if you're working with people who have built this base of support, be a player in that. And then what is the local history of this policy? You take time to find that out. So say you're working with a nonprofit, or you're working with somebody inside of a city council member's staff or state legislator's staff. Take time to find out the history of the policy that you're working on, because there's a lot to be learned there, so that you don't make the same mistakes, and make sure your research accounts for that. On the other side is if you're really brave and you have a new policy issue that you think people should be paying attention to too, because you've done some research, you know something that you think other people don't know yet. And obviously that's an important role for professors. This is the side I would suggest you take a look at. Again, the first thing I would do if I had a piece of research, like say I had a piece of research on charter schools and how they allocate their funds, and that this should have impact on how charter school reimbursement policy is made. If I had that, the first thing I would do is I would find an elected official at the level of government that I think that they need to know this. And a lot of education is at the state level. So I would find an elected official at the state level who has had interest, like go to their website, find out who is the champion around education, or charter schools or school funding, and see if you can find a way to meet with them, or more importantly, to meet with their staff. Find out who their staff people are. The staff are the ones who are going to read everything. The elected official probably is not. So who's the policy analyst in their office, and set up a time to meet with them and go and show the research to them. And what I would say is your research, don't show them the dissertation, don't show them the article you had published. You can bring that with you, but take the time to break it down into high level points. So I often say, and I think it's on this, yeah, in 3. Oh, there's my alarm. I didn't want to go over this. So that was 10 minutes. And number 3 is an important point. Like, show graphs, use stories, use metaphors, have bullet points of the high level outcomes of your research, something that communicates efficiently and can be shared. I can tell you a lot of stories of how we got some changes made just by having this one factoid, which was Pennsylvania was one of only 3 states in the country that didn't have a funding formula. That came out of a piece of research that somebody did. We used that for years to try to move the legislature, and we're able to do it just using that one top level. We had all the research, we had the dissertation. It wasn't a dissertation, it was a piece of research we had funded. But anyhow, as professors, we aren't really taught to do the high level. We really use specialized language to go really deep into the detailed and the nuanced, which is our job. But also when you want to do policy, you have to communicate, not using that language particularly, but language that communicates across a lot of people. So, and then I have something here on what to do if you are looking to make institutional change. And for this, you really need to know if there's already policy you're trying to change and where that policy is located. Is it in a handbook? Is it in a collective bargaining agreement with faculty union? Is it in a budget? Understand where your locus of change is, and then understand who's already playing in that space and connecting yourself to people who are already doing that. And there's other things, I didn't go through everything, but I hope this is helpful. I know as a policymaker, it's one of the things I have here is become on speed dial for somebody who is a policymaker. You want people to get to know you as somebody who would answer a phone call. A lot of policy gets made quickly, even though we don't like to think of it that way. Sometimes it does. And I had researchers who were on my phone who I could call and say, look, somebody just added this amendment to this bill. It had this, we think it's going to have this impact. What does the research say about that? So you have to build those relationships if you want to impact ongoing research and policy. So good luck. We need more people who are doing this work and making sure that our public policy works for people, particularly marginalized communities. So good luck. And I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording.